Welcome, listeners, to Through the Sightglass, a podcast that dives deep into the fascinating world of craft beer and celebrates the incredible individuals who shape its vibrant landscape. Join us on a journey where we explore the nuances of this amazing industry and the remarkable people who contribute to its richness and diversity. Today, we get to sit down with the crew of Henion, Dana, Mark, and John. Thanks for making time for us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Glad to be here.
So again, like we start every podcast, we'd like to know, where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Auburn, California, in the foothills of the Sierras.
Right on.
Graduated from high school in 1986.
Okay.
Ended up working at a ski area in Tahoe for a couple of years.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Do you still ski?
I do. Yep. I was snowboarding back then, but I'm skiing now.
Oh, nice. That's
Yeah.
impressive, especially working in a brewery.
Yep. I actually met Tony Lawrence, the owner of Boneyard Beer, in Tahoe. We were both working at the same ski area.
Oh,
we're
right.
Ski bums up there. So
Oh, rad.
old
Okay.
school connection there.
Nice. Did he grow up there too as well?
He grew up in Santa Barbara.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, but we just happened to converge at the same time. It was like the early days of snowboarding.
Okay, gotcha. Nice.
He actually ended up moving up here like 6 months before I did, a year before I did.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved to Bend to snowboard, I'm a bachelor. Did that, worked up at the mountain for about 6 years. And I knew a bunch of the guys at Deschutes that were brewers there. Tony ended up brewing there at that point.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And knew Tim Gossick, who's another old icon of the industry.
Yeah.
Those guys, I worked at Bachelor for 6 years. At one point, I was like, if it's not fun anymore, I don't want to do it.
Okay.
I was offered a job at Deschutes, so came to Deschutes, and immediately they just sent me out into the cellar.
Dang, okay.
Started firing off kegs at me. We were racking. It was back in the old school days of racking when they were doing Golden Gates.
Oh, okay.
So crazy racking arm with the spring on it that would come down, counter pressure keg these fills. It would pop off. You have to take this hammer, slam the bung on it before the beer came shooting out.
Oh, that's wild. I bet
So-
there's not many people now that know that there used to be bungs and kegs for beer, and that's how they got it.
It was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So started doing that, and then actually Mark was working there before I was. He was on vacation, and then he came back. He's like, "Who's this guy? You know, like, what's going on here?" It's replacing
Little
me or
stare down in
something?
the cellar.
So we were like keg washing mainly back then, and
Okay.
racking. We'd work on the canning line a bit. That's kind of when they first, or the bottling line. I'm sorry. The bottling line had just kind of really got rolling pretty big at that point.
Oh, nice.
They started, bottling Mirror Pond. They had Cascade Golden Ale.
Oh, nice. Lovely.
So we just rotate through there, and then at that point they were growing really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of opportunity for advancement, and we all kind of moved up pretty quickly.
Yeah, to keep pace.
From racking to cellaring to brewing.
Yeah.
Probably was there 4 expansions we went through there, Mark?
Yeah,
during that time. That we
Dang.
were there.
And how many years?
I was there for 9 years.
Okay, so 4 expansions in 9 years. That's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. So that's how I got my start in the industry.
Lovely.
Like washing kegs.
From ski bum to snowboard bum to yeah.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
Very cool. What about you, Mark?
So I grew up in Temecula, California, and I kind of moved around a little bit with my folks, but for the most part, that's what I call my grow up place.
Okay.
I was down there, moved up to Central California, back down to Temecula, to LA, to blah blah blah, and then it was 1993. Like I was working cabinet shops down in Temecula, and I was kind of over the scene down there. And my brother was up here working at Mount Bachelor, and I came up to visit him one spring, and just kind of fell in love with the place. And just
Nice.
like, all right, this is my next place to go to. So went back home, finished up the little schooling I was doing, and just kind of saved my money as much as I could, and then moved up here with $900 in a Volkswagen bus.
Nice. There you go. That's a dream.
Lived down by the river for about 10 days before we found a house. And I basically got a cabinet making job here. My brother bought me a homebrew kit, started homebrewing, got really into that, was watching the Deschutes brewery get built right down the street from my house,
Oh, wow.
and was kind of interested in that. And then basically once it started going, I went and got a tour and I don't know. I just was like, this is kind of what I want to do. I'm just kind of done with sawdust.
Nice.
So
Curiosity got enamored by it.
Went there and started just bugging them. It took me like 3 months to get a job.
Nice.
And finally got in there. And like John was saying, like I started 3 months before John, and I told him I have this one thing I got to do in September. If I could just have a couple days off, and then I took a couple days off, came back, and John's there, and I'm just like, what's going on now?
Yeah. Did you think at first you're like, did you guys replace me?
Yeah.
Oh,
It was kind of like, wait a minute. But yeah, that's where we met and worked together for the full 9 years there. And I don't know how far do you want to go into the.
No, that's okay. I was going to ask. So, doing woodworking and cabinetry, was that something like you got into just by yourself, or did your parents do it, or anybody in your family?
So my dad was a general contractor. He built a lot of custom homes.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So I was kind of around that growing up the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
But in high school, I took a woodworking class, and I just always liked working with wood. I liked working on lathes and working on whatever, building stuff. And
Yeah.
it just was kind of natural, and I really liked like the precision of it and cabinet making, and I don't know. I still enjoy it. I don't do it anymore, but like I still like working with wood.
Wonderful.
But yeah.
Hell yeah.
I was going to ask, when you were homebrewing, do you have any like memorable beers that you really enjoyed, or that really sparked you're like, oh, this is pretty good, I want to do more of this? Is there anything you want to tell us about your homebrew experience?
So when I started out, I was just doing extract, so it was kind of cheating in a way. But I just remember some of the first ones. I didn't really have a good way to cool down the wort, so I'd like either put it out in the snow or
I love that.
fill up the bathtub with ice and water and put the
Chill it there.
stock pot in that. But I was brewing like porters, and my first all grain was a stout that was really fun. I got to do with a friend, and I was kind of just all over the board, really.
Gotcha.
I mean, I brewed a lot of beers that I wouldn't brew today.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, more attention to the dark, roasty, robust. Yeah.
Or like fruit beers. Or,
Oh, nice.
Trying to imitate Pete's Wicked Ale.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Those are brown, right? Yeah, Pete's Wicked Brown
the
Ale.
raspberry brown or whatever it was.
Oh, gosh.
That didn't go so well.
Yeah, now people are going to have to Google that to figure out what that is. What about you, Dana? Where do you call home?
It's East Bay of the Bay Area.
Okay.
San Ramon. It's a small little, suburban town. But I haven't. My parents don't live there anymore. I lived in that area till I was 18, and then my parents moved to Florida right when I graduated high school, and I moved to Eugene to go to the U of O.
Oh, okay.
And just never called the Bay Area home again or California home again. I've been here ever since.
Nice.
And now my dad lives in North Carolina. My mom lives in Sacramento, so that that happened. But so I do have, I guess, my mom's still in California, so I go visit her. But that's about it.
What did you go to school for?
History, which I feel like I hear a lot in this industry. Like if someone went to school, it's history. I don't know why. But yeah, so I lived in Eugene for I think 13 years, and that's where I met Mark. And then we moved to Bend, and I think we've been here for 9 or I've been here 9 or 10. It's hard to. I haven't done the math lately, but
No,
I've definitely
that's
been
totally
in
okay.
Oregon longer than California at this point. So yeah, my roots in California feel pretty distant, I guess I should say.
That's okay.
Yeah.
What did you do after school? What were some of your jobs?
Yeah. So when I was at the U of O, I worked at Dairy Queen. And then right when I graduated, I was like, I should probably stop working at Dairy Queen. I've been there for like 4 years. So I applied to a job at the Beer Stein. That was like 2007. And I didn't get it, and I was bummed. And my dad's like, write him a letter and say thank you for my interview. And I was like, all right. And so I wrote him a letter and thank you for my interview. I guess the gal they hired didn't work out, and they called me back. So I actually ended up working at the Beer Stein.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I was homebrewing in college. My roommate, Alex, taught me how to homebrew. So yeah, I was totally like a craft beer dork and loved homebrewing, hence wanting to work at the Beer Stein.
Yeah.
And so I was working there I think I worked there for 2 or 3 years. While I was there, I met a whole bunch of brewers. They'd come in and get beers. And I learned that brewing is actually a job you can do professionally. And that's what intrigued me. And so instead of becoming a history teacher, I was like, I want to be a brewer. So
Yeah.
I ended up getting a job in the cellar at Oakshire while I was at Beer Stein, and then just transitioned to Oakshire. And that's in Eugene. And then worked there for 3 years, learned how to brew there, went to Davis while I was there, and then went to Ninkasi after that, and that's where I met Mark. Then I worked at Ninkasi for 3 years, and then headed off to Boneyard. And so that's where my Bend adventure began.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's probably, there's not a better spot than having like a local beer bar that you can just meet all the best industry people, or at least get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
I just bothered the heck out of my hometown brewery. I gave them like 11 resumes in like 3 months. I was like, I will literally clean toilets. Just let me work in the brewery. And they're like, sold. You got it.
Yeah. That's funny. When I got hired at Oakshire, I was like, I'm not going to clean toilets, like, and I guess that is actually what they had out for me. Like, they were literally like, okay, we're going to hire this new girl, and like, she's like lowest on totem pole, I'll have her clean the toilets.
Oh,
and the fact that I said that during like my interview or whatever, they were like, shit.
Yeah. Yeah, like, all right, so we know where you stand.
Yeah, so I did not clean toilets.
Do each of y'all remember the first like craft beer that you like really enjoyed that really sparked that knowledge and like wanting to know more about craft beer or drink more craft beer? Do y'all remember that? Because I know I remember mine. It was at a craft beer bar, so I was going to see if y'all remember y'all's first craft beer experience.
My first craft beer experience was in high school. Went over to this guy Richard Stillwell's house. He was a deadhead. We were buying some weed from him.
Heck yeah.
And he busted out a couple Sierra Nevada stouts.
Oh,
and it was like, here,
that's a good friend.
You guys try these, and I was like, this stuff tastes like motor oil. You know? I was used to like drinking domestic beers, and like, I think I might have had Sierra Pale before that. But I was just like, wow, this is really big.
Yeah.
So that was my first experience with craft beer. But I moved up to Bend in '89, and that was shortly after Deschutes had opened. So that was basically my first experience of trying a bunch of different craft beers all the time. Because during the 6 years I was working at Bachelor, we'd be drinking in there every night.
Yeah, I gotcha. So, that's solid.
So,
that's solid. I can't imagine like a better foray of just like, getting into Deschutes, and you have all these great now like legendary recipe writers and brewers that are just at their beginning, just giving you all this amazing work.
Yeah, that was when John Harris was still there, so that was back in the early days for sure.
Awesome. What about you, Mark?
So I'm trying to think. I was the same kind of thing. High school domestic beers.
Yeah. It's okay. Our buddy was like, my first one was Steel Reserve, and I was like, all right, there you go.
my big step up was Henry's Dark.
Oh, okay.
A little bit, and then one of the cabinet jobs I took in LA, my boss or whatever gave me like an Anchor Steam.
Oh,
and
classic.
I was just like, whoa, this has got a lot of flavor. This is crazy. I'm not used to this. And then basically when I came up to visit my brother up here, Obsidian Stout, it was like Obsidian Stout nights at Deschutes on Wednesdays. It was the only time they served the stout.
Oh, wow.
1 day a week. And I like fell in love with dark beers and went down this dark beer rabbit hole for a long time, and have long since dropped that and moved on to the light beers. But
as it goes in the industry.
If you look at our beer lineup, more of my alliance. But so I would say probably Anchor Steam would be like the first, and then
that really sparked it. Very cool. What about you, Dana?
I drank like really crappy beer when I was in college. The domestics and malt liquor and stuff like that. So maybe some Mad Dog. That's not beer, but we liked it.
It gets you there.
Yeah, it gets you there. And I think the first beers I had were actually probably like Stone or something like that. But my first like craft beer love that I remember was a Fat Tire. That was like my obsession. So I wanna say that was the beer that got me into it. I think I had a Fat Tire and I was like, oh my god, the flavor of this beer at the time. Yeah. I don't want to talk. My palate has changed, I guess I should say. I don't enjoy. Amber ales are a very delicious beer, but I never reach for them anymore. I guess I should say.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So for everyone, y'all all had previous experience with craft beer, but all of y'all's jobs before jumping into craft beer, do you feel like there's skill sets that you learned in those jobs before you got into a brewery that really translate or helped you just grow within the craft beer industry?
For me, I grew up doing construction with my dad. He was a contractor as well. So just hard work ethic, outwork the guy next to you. I think we were all pretty competitive back in the early days. Like, you know.
Nice.
Because I mean, it was a lot of physical labor back then. Just all the keg washing, all the racking. So just good work ethic, doing construction, you know.
Yeah.
I definitely knew that I didn't probably want to be a carpenter the rest of my life, you know. So I was like,
Yeah.
and my dad definitely wanted me to be, you know. So I was like, but I was always like looking for the out, you know. Like,
Gotcha.
but it was always a good fallback profession. I did in between jobs brewing as well. Went back into construction. So
Gotcha.
it was always a good skill set to have.
Yeah, 100%.
I feel like the cabinet making I did it for quite a while. I mean, I did it from high school to basically brewing, so 5 years, you know, which seemed like a long time back then. But I think just the accuracy and like just paying attention to all the steps and like doing everything like precise, I think probably carried over into my brewing career, because when I first got into brewing, I was like, had some really good mentors, mainly Dr. Bill Bengali. He was like pretty strict on how things are done, and so I think I was able to apply that, like the accuracy and the you know,
Like attention to detail.
to that, and I think it helped a lot. So.
Yeah, solid.
I wouldn't say like a job in particular. I mean, the beer sign taught me like all about beer, you know, from all over the world. So that was just a good thing to have in my back pocket. But I think my whole life, you know, the expression I used to be, I was a tomboy. So I really wanted to do things that people said I couldn't do. And so when I got into brewing, it just fit like a glove, because I felt like I was sort of competing constantly to like prove people wrong, or like, you know, there wasn't many girls back in 2009 in the industry, and if there were, they were probably my, you know, people I idolized or looked up to.
Yeah.
They usually weren't my coworkers, so it just created an environment in which I had to work really hard and push myself a lot, just to prove people wrong. So that just worked out. It was like, I guess, just fit really well. Glad I didn't do teaching, because I'm also kind of a silly person. And I don't think I would have enjoyed like having a serious job, like like that you have to dress up for and talk to parents and all that. Just would have been a mess, I think.
Yeah.
So.
I like that.
Perfect for a brewery.
Yeah, it suited me really well to like have an environment like a brewery to work in.
Yeah. Yeah, great forms of expression. I think all those, like hardworking, attention to detail, and I love the. I'm trying to find a right way to put it, but yeah, like it is like healthy competition, but like it's having somebody be like, you can't do this, and it's like, okay, sit back and watch me. I think those are all great things. It's a lot of stuff that I learned. I think I learned it not like in a hard way, but in a rougher way, because it's always just like, well, we don't know if you can do this. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to work my ass off and show you I can. And yeah, I never consider myself like super book smart, but I'm like, if I practice this 10,000 times, I can get it right. And so I think those traits are all super great. And anybody listening, if you're getting into the industry, those are 3 great qualities to, I think, apply to yourself and just practice every day.
Yeah. So, with each of y'all working at different breweries, is there an experience that stood out to you when working at a brewery that made you want to open your own brewery? Was there like a light bulb moment, or was there a yearning to want to own your own place?
For me, probably not so much. I know Mark was always fired up to have his own brewery. For me, later in my career, I definitely started like steering that direction, you know. But I was pretty happy just getting a paycheck and like, progressing through. You know, I was a head brewer at Cascade Lakes for 6 years, so like I'd been used to running breweries and like doing it. So like kind of at that point, you're like, okay, but you know, you're looking at a startup for a brewery, you know, $1 million or something, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of times it's just like I don't know where I'm going to come up with that kind of money.
Yeah, super daunting.
Yeah. So when this opportunity presented itself, it was you know, amazing opportunity that we couldn't pass up.
Yeah. Yeah. If you guys want to talk about that moment, how did Van Henion come to be? You know, when that happened.
So, basically, we all worked for Boneyard And when Boneyard merged with Deschutes and partnered up, this opportunity came up for this facility was going to be available, and Tony, the owner of Boneyard, like offered it up to us to like take over and acquire and try to make a go at it.
Nice.
So there was like
That's a good friend.
there was,
Yeah.
there was a transition that like went from, we were still brewing a bunch of Boneyard here while Deschutes was getting the recipes dialed over there.
Gotcha.
And we were kind of starting to ramp up Van Henion, and we just kind of gave it a go. Like we basically like the name is our last name, so John Van Duzer, Dana and Mark Henion. We came up with a lot of different names, trying to come up with a name for this brewery, and like everything's taken. Like everything's taken. Like,
What were the runner-ups?
I think it's been a while since I can't
Grain
think.
Matter, I think.
Grain
Oh,
Matter.
Grain Matter?
That one
Well,
wasn't
that's a good
taken, but which
Yeah.
ones were taken, I can't remember because you just think of it and then I think one was Plateau Brewing, which no one liked, but because this is Plateau, but that was taken. It was like there was some like German word, and there's a brewery in Texas that opened up last year that used that exact phrase for the brewery, and and I
That's
just like
insane.
every time I'd be like, ding, and then I Google it and be like, oh.
Yeah, it just shot down immediately, deflated.
Yeah, in the end, like I got a good friend who does all our graphic design and all our artwork, and he's been in the industry for a long time doing stuff for different kinds of industries. But I was like, yeah, we're thinking Grain Matter, and he's like, yeah, I can work with that. I'm like, he's like, if that's
In
what
a
you
polite way
want.
of saying, like, oh, come
He's
on.
like, I'll
Sure?
I'll make you a label, but I don't know. And I'm like, well, the other one we threw out there was just combining our names as Van Henion. He's like, oh yeah, there you go. I can totally work with that. And so he did it and came out with all the artwork and stuff. And it was
Nice.
pretty good. But, yeah.
How did y'all like settle on this? One, the styles of beer, but also, I mean, y'all's tap room is very unique. I love it so much. I remember the first time we came in here, and I was just like, "This is incredible! Like, I've never seen a tap room like this." So, how did y'all decide on the styles of beer, but also kind of the genre of the tap room and the theme for it?
Well, the three of us love lagers, German style beers. So I think that was already kind of in our heads, at least a conversation Mark and I have been having back a few years ago, like just imagining a brewery. We're like, gotta be lagers, like it's delicious. And so I think John was on the same page. We're all just making beer that we want to drink. I think that might be kind of one of our mottos is just like we make beer that we like to drink. We make beer that brewers like to drink. And maybe it's being fuddy-duddies or something that we just didn't want to, after making beer for so long for other people, maybe we just didn't want to make beer that we weren't interested in. We want to kind of put our foot in the sand on that one.
I think that's a natural transition, especially doing a bunch of different styles. You get to a point where it's like, these are the things I like to drink, and I would like to be able to have them all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, I can't tell you how many. I love Fort George, but I get off for a shifty, and it's like, there's nothing below 7% on the tap board, and I'm like, I will just go to Bridge and Tuttle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys agree with that, if that works.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, lower alcohol lagers. I mean, that's what we were all drinking. So
Yeah.
that was just, it was a no-brainer. I mean, IPAs. We're IPA brewers. We've been brewing IPAs forever, and our IPA is amazing, which is Dana's recipe. I love that beer, but like, out of probably 20 beers I drink, I might have one of those.
Yeah.
Just because like I love the lower ABV lagers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been saying for 20 years that it's lager's time, Pilsner's time to come out. It's like, all right, it's gonna turn that corner, and I think it's finally actually happening. Like I think it's
I like that.
a lot more people are producing lagers, a lot more people are producing, lighter beers, not the big heavy hitters.
Yeah. Do you think it's because people are realizing that with better like attention to detail and execution, you can get the same amount of like aroma and complexity that you can if you just throw a ton of hops in it and use a bunch of different, like cryo and now all the other hop products out there? Do you think that's been recognized now?
I would hope so. I mean, I think I feel like definitely like a nice clean lager is harder to make, in my opinion, than a big hoppy IPA or stout or something like that. Because any fault's gonna like really show themselves. but for me, I feel like there was almost like the pandemic kind of helped it.
Yeah.
Because all these people like had a bunch of empty tanks and they didn't, all these different breweries were like, well, what are we gonna do? We're not selling much beer, so let's do a lager. Because I just saw like through the pandemic, which was right when we were getting started.
Yeah.
Just a lot of breweries that never did lagers do lagers.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like, okay, wait a minute, this is our thing, This is what we're trying to push.
Everybody been hearing
jump
you
in
preach,
with.
but was just waiting.
But I'm happy for it. I'm super happy that there's making that movement. But
Nice. That was something I never
hopefully it
thought of.
sticks
If you have open tank space, to like, cool, we can put whatever we want into it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be another round IPA or something.
it doesn't have to be a 2-week beer. We can
Yeah.
tie up his tank for 8 weeks. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
there you go. There you go.
What was it like when y'all opened the brewery? How did the community, Ben, there's a lot of breweries here. There's a lot of long-term breweries. So what did the community, how y'all received when y'all first opened?
I think the reception was pretty good. We know a lot of people in the community. We've all lived here for a long time, been in the brewing industry here for a long time. Definitely, we see a lot of brewers come in here. There's a bunch of breweries right in this neighborhood right here.
Yeah.
So, there's nothing more flattering than to see a room full of brewers in here drinking your beers
Oh, yeah.
after their shift.
That's like the biggest accolade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're like that's pretty amazing. Just connections in the community, stores, bars. I think we were well received from the beginning. We've been really just focusing hard on our market here. We do self-distribution here, and I feel like we're doing really well. You go to a lot of accounts, you're going to see our beers.
Yeah, we see it everywhere. We get it in Belmont Station. I worked there for like 6 months all the time, and I was always stoked to see Van Henion come in. So
those guys are great at Belmont.
yeah,
for sure.
and that's also a slog to go up there because it's not just hitting Belmont. You all are probably hitting like 7 to 10 different accounts. So that's a long day.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So how do y'all decide your strategy for your beer lineup? Like, do y'all have core beers and then there's several things that y'all kind of rotate through? Kind of give us your strategy bit behind the beers that y'all have on tap.
I think they all kind of have a little bit of signatures on them in a way. The Hellas was Dan and I's wedding beer. John's the Kolsch guy. He's always brewed Kolsch, and so that's his baby.
Is that kind of like how the brew schedule goes too? Is just seeing who's brews up and it's like, okay, so you're brewing that, I'm brewing this.
Not so much.
Not so much.
Kind of,
That's okay.
Actually, at first though, it was like if we were brewing a Coles, John was like on it.
Yeah.
I think that
Gotcha.
you want to make sure your baby went well.
Yeah.
We have two really talented brewers.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
They're doing most of the brewing, to be honest.
Perfect.
We've got other responsibilities that we're taking
Oh,
care
yeah.
of. So
Delegating
I
a
gotta
great
be
teachers.
honest, like to jump out on the brew deck right now and do a brew by myself, I'd probably be a little nervous.
Gotcha.
Like,
No,
but
that-
I'm like, it's close, it's there. You're like,
You feel the
all right,
itch sometimes?
Yeah, you're just like,
yeah, no, that's good though. Yeah, there does have to be a point. I think that can be a hard thing in this industry is letting go of like it's protecting your babies, watching this business grow, and then trusting it to other people because it takes so much of your soul and passion. And then it's just like, oh, I don't want to mess it up. And it's like, oh, but you're needed elsewhere to do other things, and that helps. I think it would help your mental load. Hopefully, I think a lot of brewers need help with their mental loads. It needs to come down a notch or two.
Yeah, it sucks. You feel like you're just getting further and further away from the brew deck, but
Yeah,
you're still involved in it. Like the recipes, like I was saying, like Dana's got her IPA. It just
Do the Pilsner game.
we did the
Pilsner from
Pilsner.
Mark. Schwartz was
Yeah.
kind of a collab.
Schwartz was the collab with all the brewers.
Oh, nice.
And like
Bill
John was
did the
saying, we got two awesome brewers that we've actually been working with for, I don't know, off and
20
on for
years.
20 plus years.
Oh, heck yeah.
And so we know where they're at, and we know we don't have to even worry about it. They're out there, and they got it, so it makes it really.
Yeah, that's like stress for your ease.
Yeah,
right there.
that's like that part is no stress. It's the books that are the stress.
Oh, yeah. You went from one stressful
Yeah.
physical situation now to like this mental stress load of
yeah.
accounts and all that. Tax season just finished, thank God.
We're definitely out there sampling off the tanks and
Yeah,
we're like
tracking
super
fermentation.
involved with
Yeah.
just like tasting it and always discussing with the brewers what's going on.
Yeah.
So we're connected that way.
Yeah.
I do miss a good brew shift,
Yeah. I think one thing that when I talk to a lot of brewers and people is that as they move up into other leadership and head brewer roles, when they're not on the brew deck, I feel like I'm going to lose like my talent or knack for it. Is that like a fear that y'all feel sometimes when you have to do more of the, kind of like operations management for the actual business as opposed to, obviously you're involved in the fermentation, but
I don't feel like that ever really goes away. Like
Okay.
I like it. It'll come back real quick, and I think the connection of the process is just embedded.
yeah,
Maybe you might forget what valve to flip at what time, but like you'll figure it out real quick.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just like
yeah, you hear the foghorn going, you're like, oh yeah.
So I mean, to me, I don't feel like I'm losing that part of it. I just miss it, I guess, more than
Yeah.
anything.
That's a good way to put that. I definitely have that. Like I'm taking like a year off of brewing, and I'm just like, oh well, I remember how to do it, and I have to remind myself, it's like, dude, I've practiced thousands of hours on this. You'll be okay. You'll figure out if your glove has a hole in it when you have like brewing caustic on your finger, and you're like, oh, okay, need to switch out new gloves.
Well, you two brew. You go out there and do 2 brews with the brewer.
Oh,
you're
nice.
back on it.
Yeah,
you're,
true.
You're like, but if you don't, and then you do that, and you don't brew for another 6 months, you're kind of back in the same spot again.
I see. Yeah, a little bit of that anxiety.
Yeah, just like.
Yeah. I like this segment because I always think it's fun to share these stories. Do you guys have any memorable, funny, or kind of, they don't have to be like horrifying, but like fuck up stories that you guys have had throughout the years that really stand out to you?
I like Mark's caustic bath story.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right.
Ocean
A little
story.
much.
Oh, that's okay. No, we have, and I have a photo of it actually. I'm surprised OSHA didn't find it when I was at Seven Seas, but when Seven Seas migrated to Tacoma into the old Heidelberg building, and we were bringing up these giant wooden beams from the production floor into the brew house floor on the second level, and we had cut this square hole to forklift and drag it through with a scissor lift, which is super not safe, but they weren't going to pay the money to cut the roof and crane them in. And so we forklifted, balanced it on 2 scissor lifts, had the scissor lift pull it through, and it was a cellarman on the forklift, and then our owner, and then a construction worker that was still there for some reason that we offered him. We brewed a beer called Balls Deep. It was like a 9% double IPA. We're like, we'll give you 2 flats of this. He's like, hell yeah, I'll get on this scissor lift. And as we were pulling it, of course, this would happen because it's physics, but when it got off the first scissor lift, it just slammed into the second one with this construction guy going like this on it. And then you could hear our brewmaster, Travis, telling our other breweries, like, floor it, floor it. He's trying to get the scissor lift to go faster, trying to pull this giant beam through. And I just stood there laughing. I was like, oh gosh. I was like, what have I gotten myself into? But yeah, stuff like that. And if you don't want to, that's okay.
I've had more than one.
Yeah.
I've pulled the wrong side of the valve off a tank before. So
Oh.
that's pretty interesting when you got 15 psi on a full tank of beer.
Oh gosh.
And you think you're pulling the TC off the front side of the valve, and you're on the back side of the valve.
Yeah.
And the valve pops off, and you've got beer just shooting out at
Yeah.
an incredible rate. And you're slamming your hand over the valve, and you're like screaming at people to like blow down the tank and like give me a hose, give me a
valve
valve
and a
with an open
gasket.
hose on it.
Yeah.
Like, trying to slam that back on there. I mean, and you're just covered in like 33-degree beer.
Oh yeah,
just
you're
like-
freezing cold.
and
Yeah.
You're like freaked out. So that's a good.
I think
one.
it's kind of funny that I think it was Deschutes. You guys were working together, or it was Cascade Lakes, but you guys had like a board with something attached to it, so you could push the
Yeah.
board against the tank.
Well, the board was like an improvised one the first time it happened. We actually built a stainless
Oh okay.
tube with a TC that went on it, so you could ram it back in. Because like 4 different brewers had done it.
Oh wow.
They
Okay.
pulled the
wrong carb
pulled the
stone.
wrong carb stone. Because if you got 10 tanks lined up
Yeah.
and you're working behind them, it's really easy to be on the wrong tank
100%.
when you're cleaning them. So
100%. Yeah.
Any other stories?
come on, Mark, you got a good one. How about when you pumped the porter into the
Oh yeah, that's
pail
a good
tank?
one.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, you made a black and tan?
Yeah, so yeah, I literally made a black and tan. It was- I hook up to the wrong tank and pumped a bunch of porter wort into a pail tank that was already actively fermenting from like 2 days before or something, and finally figured it out and
200 barrel tanks too.
yeah,
You know,
200 barrel tank, and I was trying to pump 50 more barrels of porter and 200 barrels of ale.
You're like, it's not moving
Yeah,
anymore.
and I figured it out, and I stopped, and then I immediately like went to the right tank, and was trying to figure out what to do, and then I started pulling the bottom of the pail tank that had porter in it, and it was just porter wort coming out. So I'm like, well, we could save this. Like, let's just send this back to the porter tank, and then I don't know. We all kind of brainstormed it and ended up dumping a bunch of porter, but it all worked out. Like the pail wasn't, the color wasn't changed at all, and it went to this point where it was like just clear wort to like, you know, fermenting beer, and
Nice.
it worked out pretty well. So that was,
Dude,
that was a
troubleshooting
crazy
is like
one.
one of my favorite things in
Yeah.
a brewery.
Yeah, this is a lot of that.
Yeah.
With y'all's ingredients, like, do y'all try to source locally? Where do y'all try to get your ingredients from? Different places? What kind of makes it a deciding factor of where y'all bring y'all's ingredients in from?
Well, being that we do a lot of German style beers, we bring a lot of stuff in from Wireman, German maltster.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And then we also source RAR 2-row for our IPAs, and you know, which is domestic.
Yeah.
But hops, we kind of just get, you know, a lot of German hops, and then the rest remaining from Yakima Valley, typically.
Gotcha. Yeah. Is there many hop farms down here in Bend?
No.
Okay.
I mean, there's a couple, but
I figured the climate maybe not be the
Yeah.
best for them.
there's a couple, but they don't. I've never seen them available to purchase. I think it's more just for.
I mean, there's no kilns down here,
Yeah.
so you got to
Oh,
have the
gotcha.
infrastructure to dry the hops.
True.
So I think a lot of those, there's several of them that are around here, but I think the brewers will use those as wet hop or fresh hop
Oh,
beers
I see. Yeah.
at the end of the seasons, because then they can just pick them
And
do
just
it-
throw
do
'em
it-
right
do a
in.
fresh hop beer with
Yeah.
it. So
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Do you guys have any advice if you could go back even to your younger selves, so like when you started in the beer, do you guys have advice that you'd give yourselves that might save you heartache or trouble or something that would help you? I think that's the reason I think that question is when training, you know, younger people getting into the beer industry. I'm not a super wisdom guy, but I just try to tell them, be like, hey, I know it's tough, but like, here are some things that could help you out, or like, hey, just this might save you from hitting your head on that brick wall, you know. Do you guys have any of those that come to mind?
for me, somebody who's just looking to get into the industry, you see a lot of people that go to Davis or Siebel
Oh, yeah.
or something like that. I know Deschutes sent me there in 2002 to Davis, so I got to do that course. But I've been brewing for 4 years already,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's probably the better route to go, to have experience in a brewery
Mhm.
and have production experience and then go to school, as opposed to just like going to brew school and then expecting to get a job as a brewer
Yeah.
right out the gate, you know. So like that's the only thing I can really think of. It's
Gotcha.
like practical experience goes a long way,
Mhm.
and the education that you get after that is gonna sink in a lot more than if you just jumped into it off
Wonderful.
the beginning. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a career of passion if you're into brewing. Like when I first got into brewing, I thought it was just going to be a hobby, and then several years in, I'm like, I guess this is what I'm doing. But I think in the end, the big thing is just you're not going to get rich brewing. You got to love it for what you do. You
Yeah.
know? So it's fun. I like the fact that it's a little bit of everything. You know, it's
Yeah.
microbiology, it's physics, it's I don't know, it's got a lot of brain challenging things that
Yeah.
keep you involved, included, and you know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I like the most about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's like a lot of avenues to be creative for sure. Whether it's
Yeah.
like the ingredients you pick or how you
Yeah.
build a recipe, or if you're really focused on the yeast and how that performs. And then people even to like designing tanks or like what they want that to do it's great. So
Yeah, when I started, like these guys, I was pretty young, and I was just really intimidated, and I thought maybe it was going to be an easy job to lose. So I feel like I didn't stand up for myself enough, or I should have had my back more. I think that if I could go back to younger Dana, I would have been like, say something, stand up for yourself. No one's going to fire you. You're kicking ass. Like, they're happy to have you here. I think that I felt like I was in like a vulnerable state as like the new person in the industry, and it was a job I wanted so bad that I didn't, give myself the support I should have had. So
Yeah.
I wish I'd go back and be like, get out there and say something. So
No, that's good. Especially, I think, encompassing this range. I mean, y'all started in the 90s and early thousands. I started in 2015. I do feel like still that dogma and ideology was kind of like, if you're not outworking the next person, you can lose your job like that. Also, there wasn't a whole lot of inclusivity or equality in the beer scene. Do you feel now that has gotten better? Do you feel that ego in the beer scene has gotten better? That was a big thing too. I ran into is people be like, "Oh, you're just a keg washer. We can't tell you our secrets." And it's like, "But I want to learn, and how am I supposed to learn if you won't show me?" Yeah.
yeah, I think that things have gotten way better, and maybe it's because we've all grown up. So now those folks that become cellar people or assistant brewers and such, we know where they're at, and we're like want to be supportive of them and teach them all we can. Mark, and he's a generation kind of before me a bit, and he was super supportive of me and made me feel like a professional. So I think that existed before, but it was harder to find. But I think if we want to talk about women in brewing, I think things have gotten way better. And I think maybe because everybody's grown up a bit. So,
Yeah.
I think that whole competitiveness part, like in our early days at Shoots when we were all, there was like 10 of us, it was very competitive, and like everyone tried to outwork each other. I don't really see that so much anymore these days. People are just kind of like, yeah, well, let's do whatever. Like, so it's kind of like, it's a little different that way. I feel like people feel like they don't have to compete or something. I don't know, which isn't necessarily the most healthy thing. But I think overall, I think support for your staff, it seems like it's better, I guess. I don't really know. I don't know what I'm trying to say here.
No, that's I think wise people like y'all, I think that makes sense. You're able to pass that down where it's like we don't need to treat people like this anymore.
Yeah. It's just like give
that
them
attitude
support.
has changed.
Yeah.
Like, I think that paying people proper wages is more of a topic. People share wages now, like information. I think back in the day, especially back in the 90s, was everyone was working for
$6.50 an
nothing.
hour.
Yeah.
Working your ass off.
But all the free beer. But all the free beer.
All the free low fills you want.
Yeah.
Half price shift meal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think with all that, I think with the better mentality that's in the field today, have y'all, we have never asked this question, but I've worked with it a lot. Have y'all struggled with mental health in the industry and kind of, I think, that weird duality that mental health and alcohol have on each other? Also, you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. That's totally okay.
I had some challenges starting a new brewery.
Yeah. Stressful. Yeah.
High stress level, and just trying to figure it out. But I mean, I've seen a little bit in the industry with people. Nothing too, nothing too crazy I can really point my finger at. But
well, that's good.
Definitely some folks kind of going off, the deep end, and then they kind of bring it back in, and but
do y'all have, because of that, do y'all have something for you and y'all's team to really help combat that, or to find more work-life balance, or to is it just since it's a small team y'all are able to really communicate well with each other? Maybe what kind of culture do y'all have as a team here at Van Henion?
Yeah, we're a really small team. What do we got?
We're a close team too.
7.
Nice.
Everyone's pretty tight, so everyone communicates really well. We're like kind of always, keeping each other up to date with what's going on, and
Wonderful. There's a lot of transparency.
Yeah,
there's a lot of support for each other if something goes wrong in their life. I think that people are really understanding of that. life happens and it's not always great. So.
Yeah, it's like if you need time off, take time off. If you need, feeling well today, we'll see you tomorrow. So
Good.
I think we have a pretty supportful group of folks here that
Hell yeah.
try to help each other out.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I mean, going back to the original question, I've probably seen it with in the 24 years or whatever I've been brewing. I've probably seen 2 or 3 people where you're just like, you shouldn't be in this industry.
Yeah, you can
there's
just kind of
certain
tell.
people that if they have alcohol issues, you're like, this is not the industry for you. You should probably start looking for something else because you can just see it.
That's good.
So,
Those are hard conversations to
they
have.
are. They're super.
I've had to do it once, and I was like, man, this is gonna go roughly because usually those people, they don't want to admit that they have a problem.
Right.
And I've had my struggles too, and I realized it's like, oh yeah, just as I take care of my body physically, I need to take care of my mental health, mentally. So, and sometimes booze isn't the way to go.
I was going to ask, just kind of moving away from the topic, just some of the exciting news that you'll have had recently. How did y'all do at OBF, or OBAs, sorry, not OBF, OBAs. How was that for y'all up in Portland?
We actually didn't make it up there again this year. We're kind of, Ben's kind of, you get isolated down here. We're busy. We have a small team, so it's tough for us to run out there. But we should have went because we did win a medal this year, and we won a medal there last year as well when we didn't go. So
Nice.
Maybe it's better luck not to go because
Now we're in a position where it's like if we go,
And it doesn't happen. No, I like that. That's great.
Yeah.
That's right. Will they mail it down to you? I assume so. Correct?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
over
Oh,
there.
okay.
It's over there on the bar.
Solid.
So we best of craft, the Kolsch won gold.
Oh, awesome.
And then OBA it won gold. So that was kind of cool to get 2 back-to-backs.
Hell
Just
yeah.
within a few weeks. So that was nice.
That's solid.
Yeah.
That's solid. Well, we're at 51 minutes.
I have another question. So we have some time left to give to y'all. Like, do y'all have anything exciting coming up? Anything? I mean, spring. I know it's still getting cold here in Bend at night, but anything that y'all are excited about for Van Henion that we want to let the people know about?
Yeah, we're participating in the Bitburger Challenge that they do up in Portland. And Bitburger is Mark's
Prost.
favorite beer. Yeah, at
Prost.
Prost. It's Prost's Bitburger Challenge.
Heck yeah.
So we brewed a beer for that. It's in tank right now, fermenting or conditioning. And I think they were all pretty jazzed for a new Pilsner. So.
Heck yeah. When you said Bitburger Challenge, I thought it was like how many you can drink, and I was like, that's
That's
awesome.
like at 4 o'clock.
Sign me up.
Yeah, that's our own challenge. Yeah, we have that in company. Cool.
Any other collabs?
Yeah. Our Arable collab that we're doing on Tuesday, we're going to make an American Light Lager. That's a brand new brewery in Eugene, Oregon. Started by my good friend Chris Archer and his buddy Cam and his wife, and Liz. And so yeah, really pumped about that.
Nice.
And then we have another collab. Do you want to talk about that, or is it too soon?
Which one? Double Mountain.
No, well, not. I was actually.
So I went to Double Mountain. We might be doing something with them here real
Oh,
soon,
sweet.
which would be pretty cool.
Heck yeah.
I like that. The crew up there.
Well,
Yeah.
we've got Leichtbier in tank right now. We've got it in cans right now, which was a collab with
Virgil.
Virgil Gamache Farms.
Oh, okay.
And Hollenberry and Son.
Okay.
So Dana could probably speak to that better than I can. It was kind of her beer.
Yeah, we brewed it kind of for the little beer fest out in Georgia. It's a fest put on by Good Word Brewing, and it is rad. And we're one of the few brewers from the West Coast invited out, even though we have absolutely no territory out there whatsoever. But it's a really fun and rad fest. So we made the lightest beer we could. We made a 3.8% Leichtbier, which is a light lager, like German style. And we brewed it with, Virgil Gamache Farms and the Hollenberry and Sons. They gave us German Tradition, and then Virgil Gamache Farms gave us Sonnet hops. Were more of like kind of give off this really awesome lemon characteristic that really added a lot to it. And just Randon and Tim from those different companies are super rad people. We used to brew with Randon at Boneyard for a couple years. A super talented person. And so it was really fun, like friendly collab, and we made, I think, a very awesome beer. So super stoked about it.
Heck yeah. We actually worked that festival. I brewed in Atlanta for about 6
Really?
Oh, no
months.
shit.
And we did the little beer fest. Yeah, it was
Nice.
super fun. I do remember seeing the lineup because they also had Fair Isle, who we did a podcast. They sent a beer there. And I was like, that's crazy. That's so awesome. Yeah. If you ever in Atlanta, go to Halfway Crooks and go to
Oh,
Elsewhere
we were
Brewing.
there. We were
Okay.
there.
Yeah.
We were just there like a few days ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Heck,
crushing Hellas's, dude. They were so good.
Yeah, and it is the perfect weather. That's one thing. We were there from like December until May, and I'm a hairy human, so once the humidity hit, I was like, I'm out. Peace. But winter was fun, good weather, and yeah, all the crushable, quaffable beer. Did y'all go to the brick store?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we had our
Oh,
beer and
we had
tap
an
there.
event
We
there.
shipped a
Yes.
keg out.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
That's amazing down underneath there, those vaults and stuff.
Oh
Like, it's
yeah.
insane.
It's so glad that building and everything is still there. We would go there and drink cask. I think we went there like in January or February, and they had like a Sierra Nevada celebration on cask, and that's me and the brewer and Jules. That's like all we drank. We were like, yes. But
Yeah, our friends own the Elsewhere breweries there in Atlanta, so that's why we were there. We'll definitely be going back to hang out with them, and we're talking about this just recently because of the festival that was going on. But we were really excited to like go back, and because it's such a cool beer scene down there, and we're like, we should definitely talk to see if we can get some podcasts with them, some of the people down there, because it's just great beer, like really great beer for sure. Any exciting events coming up? I know y'all do y'all's Oktoberfest, but do y'all have anything before that for the summer? Anything popping up here
I think
at the tap room?
Oktoberfest is the event.
The-
That's our next one, and it's we're gonna have a accordion band again. We're gonna bring in outside breweries to serve their Oktoberfest style beers.
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You guys put on a
Hell
great
yeah, dude.
Oktoberfest.
It was a blast. I can't wait for this year. So that's it. That's all we got going on.
Good. Well, we appreciate your time. Thank y'all for
Thank you so
seriously
much.
taking down to sit and share your story and get to hang out with us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Thank
super
you.
fun.
Yeah, cheers everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That went so smooth.